If your best friend was wanted by a cartel and asked you to start a drug empire disguised as a gator zoo, what would you do? We've all fantasized about it, living the life of a narco gangster. The money, the drugs, the American dream cut into a neat, dime-sized package. But people forget about the price that comes with it. The violence, the paranoia, the reality of knowing you're merely a trend in an incredibly volatile market. The truth is, most of us aren't built for that life. But luckily, our friends here are exactly the type who are. Say hello to Walter Escobar Montana, street urchin turned gun dealer. Grew up in alleyways and pawn shops. The kid knew how to fence items before he can even climb one. Escobar made his name as a gun runner down in Miami, acting as a third-party broker for gangs of every size. He was a natural deal maker, ambitious, calculated. Give him an hour and he'll have you eating from the palm of his hand. Well, he could have, if it wasn't for his obsessive fear of germs. Eventually things got too hot in Miami, so he skipped town and went north to Tampa, where a crew called the Salt Caps had a better gig. He wasn't officially on the paybook, more like an independent contractor for weapons, always chasing that entrepreneurial dream. That hustle made him some good money, but it also made him an easy target. One day the ATF came knocking, and Escobar did what any self-respecting narco would. He ran. And this fella right here is Clyde Floridaman Rutledge. You ever seen those videos of a guy jet skiing through a hurricane or wrestling a gator with a cigarette in his mouth? Well, it was probably him. Unlike Escobar, Floridaman wasn't really on anyone's radar. He had a few run-ins with the law, but nothing major. His problem started with a shady business venture in Tampa. His Uncle Jimothy's food truck, a mask for an illegal moonshine still. One night, Jimothy was given a ride home by some associates, but he never made it back. And Floridaman, he was left holding the bag. Now he owed a large debt to some rather impatient people, with no way to pay it. That's when Escobar showed up, on the run and out of options. So they partnered up and retreated into the swamps. And on that day, Bogwater Brothers Limited was born. On paper, it was just another gator zoo, an oddly common sight in the state of Florida. But behind closed doors, it was the seed of a drug empire. At least, that's what they hoped. They thought they were running, but it turns out the swamp was calling them home. It wasn't exactly the secret paradise Escobar had in mind, but it was better than hanging in a meat locker or rotting in a cell. Floridaman said his uncle's cabin was beachfront property. That was technically true, but greatly misleading. Their new base was a rundown shack clinging to a forgotten stretch of boggy coastline, somewhere between Cedar Key and Panama City. A hurricane magnet, as Floridaman proudly called it. The beach was mostly sand, broken up by the occasional patch of mud and rusted metal. For the first few days, they focused on cleaning up, sweeping dirt, patching holes, hauling supplies through humid rain. It was miserable work, but neither of them complained. If anything, they welcomed the grind. Even Escobar, his hands dirty and blistered from a day of hauling rocks, seemed almost happy. When they weren't working, they took turns fishing, not for fun, but for survival. Their gators, Tony Snaprano and El Chompa, had hearty appetites. If they got hungry enough, anything or anyone was on the menu. So keeping them fed was a high priority. After surveying the land, Escobar determined the best place to start a field was directly north of the compound. Rich soil, plenty of sun, and there was even more room to grow. But there was one downside. It was overgrown with trees, and home to the crumbling skeleton of an old building. Tearing down the ruins became the first real project of the team, and they attacked it with an equal amount of enthusiasm. The foundation was so rotted that the wood had turned into mushroom logs, a bizarre natural process, and one of the reasons the soil was so damn fertile. Once the ruins were cleared away, Escobar began designing the fields, while Floridaman focused on building an addition to their shack, something sturdier and less likely to collapse. Their skills complemented each other, just like they had back in the half-accredited trade school they met in. They were just as ambitious back then. While other kids were studying or partying, they were knocking on doors, offering cost-effective labor for odd jobs around the house. Need those gutters cleaned? How about your dishwasher? Is that still busted? Well, don't worry, because Walt and Clyde are your guys. Walter handled the talking, and Clyde did the fixing. It was a fun little gig while it lasted, but eventually time pulled them in different directions, like two fishing lures on a river. Escobar got called back to Miami for family business, and Floridaman tried adjusting to city life. Even after a few years, that bond never faded, and when Escobar returned, they picked right back up where they left off. Only now, instead of homework, it was cigars and bourbon. The duo's rapid progress boosted their confidence, and their moods swelled even more once the rain stopped. They barely talked when they worked. Instead, they exchanged the occasional nod or crude joke. It was an understanding between bros. It kept them focused and helped them process the recent craziness they both endured. Floridaman scavenged the nearby forest and discovered a treasure trove, old ship chunks left to rot by his uncle. He would need to break them down carefully. One bad step on an oil slick or scratch from rusted metal and he'd be gator food. But patience paid off, and he disassembled the first one for some steel and components. Meanwhile, Escobar continued carving out his fields. He planted rice and cotton along the edges, like a natural privacy fence, hiding the real cash crop deeper inside. Smoke leaf. It was an easy starting drug, legal in most places, commercialized to hell and back, but still in high demand. Pun intended. Big corporations had sterilized the industry. Bland strains, weak potency, they just treated it like any other investment. Give the customer the cheapest, most soulless product you can, and charge the highest price. Profit. Escobar was determined to change that. To him, growing smoke leaf was an art form, an expression of life itself, something people would taste and feel. His product wouldn't just get you high, it would mean something. The fourth day began with a big surprise. Visitors. The fellas were suspicious at first. Why the hell would anyone else be in these swamps? But their nerves calmed once Floridaman recognized them. A shaman caravan from the Golo Covenant, an elusive group who lived in the Everglades and made their fortune in the exotic animal trade. Their leader, Mantis Gokai, was a volatile, super immune fisherman with a taste for eccentric fashion. In fact, most of the traders wore carved masks or some type of accessory, and a few even rode elephants. Probably illegal, but no one's calling animal control this deep into the muck. The prices were steep, but Escobar was a big believer in first impressions. So, as a sign of good faith, he offered up a trade, modern medicine for a fungal variant. It was a bad deal, but a friendly one. Then the two joked and talked for a while, and by the end, he had won Mantis over. Then Mantis asked a question.
What's the name of your settlement?
Escobar glanced at Floridaman, ready to ask for the address. Then he realized how silly of a question that would be out here. He looked around for inspiration. There were calm waters, lush forests, hidden fields of smoke leaf. It was a secret base, a drug haven that few spoke about, and even fewer have seen. A loud crack broke the moment. Tony Snaprano had just caught some poor animal in his jaws. Wait, that was it. He knew the answer.
El Gatorado.
Mantis smirked and jotted it down.
Oh, and Floridaman too.
Escobar nodded. He pointed to the woods where his friend was already vanishing.
Hey, he's not much of a talker.
While Escobar was busy making friends, Floridaman was doing the same, but in a different sense. He spotted a herd of boomalopes a few days earlier, so he grabbed some mushroom logs and tried taming a few. These lumpy guys may not seem like much, but to many Floridians, they're priceless. Those yellow sacks were filled with chem fuel, the second best fuel source for big, obnoxious trucks, only behind diesel, of course. None of the booms were biting at first, but then the last one took the bait. Success. Only problem was, he didn't have anywhere to keep the damn thing. Unlike gators, if he didn't fence them in, boomalopes would eventually wander away. So he spent the night sketching out a pen and started it at first light. By sundown, he tamed 2 more and put them in the new enclosure. The next morning, Floridaman was up early, finishing the boomalope pen. It was already structurally sound. He was just trying to decorate it, and he certainly found a way. Morning, friend.
What is that?
Floridaman finished jamming the dirty metal sign into the fence. Then he wiped the algae off and stepped back to admire it. Hoppin' Jay's Diner. Best cheese fries in the state, circa 1976.
Where did you find that?
Near the fields where we dug out them ruins.
Well, it's quite the decoration.
Sure is. I think them booms appreciate it.
You think they can read?
Nah, but they ain't dumb. Floridaman walked over and started petting one gently on the forehead. It just exploded under pressure, like the rest of us.
I guess you're right.
Escobar couldn't help but smile at his friend's optimistic view of the world. he was envious in a way. Wherever he saw a road bump, Floridaman saw a ramp to jump off. It was a beautiful way to view the world, but a reckless one. A few days later, an unexpected visitor crash-landed on the southern beach. Her name was Aredio, a transporter for the Clear Bloom Bottling Company. Injured, but alive. She was crying out for help when Escobar spotted her. Unfortunately, all that shouting got someone else's attention too. Fun fact about gators, even with stubby legs, they could still run faster than Usain Bolt. And Escobar here was not Usain Bolt. He ordered the stranger to remain calm, but the agonizing pain made her oblivious to the dinosaur in the tree line. Then, just like in Animal Planet, the predator charged in. He reached the stranger just in time and scooped her into his arms. But then he heard the heavy thud of reptilian feet. He closed his eyes and braced for impact. "The hell you doing, Escobar?" Floridaman asked, almost like he was blaming him.
Your gator almost killed me.
"Oh, her? Nah, she harmless." Floridaman gave another whistle in a different pitch, and the gator huffed and trotted off. "Who's your friend?" The woman whispered in Escobar's ear.
Aredio. Her plane crashed.
"Well, ain't that something?" Escobar brought her back to camp and turned his tent into a makeshift triage. Aredio explained that her plane engine failed. She was forced to jump, but her chute didn't deploy properly. She barely escaped. They spoke softly for a while. Then she dozed off. Floridaman stood next to the shack and watched the ocean. Escobar joined him. "How's she doing?"
She'll live. Got lucky.
"Engine failure, huh?"
That's what she said.
"You think it was foul play?"
Nah. I don't think she's all there. She said something, grab the plane.
"Grab the plane? What does that mean?"
No idea. She probably just imagined it. The only thing I know is that there's a plane full of soda out there in the swamps.
What kind?
What, are you gonna go search for it?
Maybe. Depends.
Let's just focus on here instead.
Escobar explained that this presented them with an opportunity. Aredio worked for Clear Bloom, the company behind local favorites like Bayou Dew, Gator Grape, and several others. More importantly, they were the top beverage distributor in all of Florida. If they can win her over, she might help them ship product in the future. It was risky. The salt caps were known to use Clear Bloom trucks for smuggling across the state, but an insider would help them avoid any potential conflicts. Floridaman agreed. "Hell, if anyone can convince a girl to smuggle drugs, it's you."
I'll do my thing. Just keep the gators away from her.
Throughout the day, Escobar turned the charm up to 11. He checked in on Aredio often, told her amusing stories while changing her bandages, and even harvested some rice to make her sushi. Floridaman noticed the extra effort. "You trying to get her to distribute something, all right?" Escobar ignored him. He knew it wasn't just about her, it was about what she represented. An entry into a larger system, a corporate bloodline that flowed across the state, connecting ports to warehouses, and warehouses to markets. She was his ticket in, and he wasn't about to waste it. That night, it rained again. Not a thunderstorm, just a steady, soft drizzle that blanketed the swamp in an eerie hush. Even the gators were unusually still. Inside the tent, Aredio stirred, her breathing uneven. Escobar checked in on her.
You okay?
I keep seeing it.
Seeing what?
That thing in the swamp. It was like a tree had reached up and grabbed the wing. Some type of root or tentacle. I felt it. It wasn't just an engine failure. Although it is probably just the meds talking.
A shiver ran down his spine. Escobar looked at the coastline. The waves were flat and perfectly still, obsidian glass that only the moon dared to touch. Everything appeared fine, but he couldn't shake the uneasiness in the air.
You're safe now. Whatever it was, it's gone.
That seemed to calm her down, but the words tasted bitter in his mouth. The following day, another strange event occurred, as is so often the case in this part of the world. A man calling himself Brett Flory radioed in, asking to join their settlement. He said he was lost in the swamps and had been wandering aimlessly for days. The boys talked it over. He already knew where they were, Better to bring him in and find out who they were dealing with than leave a stranger sniffing around El Gatorado. This guy was a big unknown, but the swamps tested him all the same. As soon as he entered the area, a Florida panther leapt upon him. Most folks would run. Brett didn't. He launched himself into the beast, knife in hand. For every bite or scratch he received, he repaid double in stabs. By the end, the panther was dead, or would be soon, and Brett wasn't doing much better. He was bleeding from various places, and his left little toe was bitten off completely. Floridaman spotted him staggering through the trees. He tried to help, but Brett proudly stated that he could walk on his own. And so he did. An hour later, he reached El Gatorado and collapsed to the ground.
What happened?
Big man got jumped by a panther.
Where? We need to check on our radio.
No need. Our new friend took care of it.
With just a knife? What is he, a Navy SEAL?
Maybe. Might have something to do with that weird mask.
Escobar was skeptical. When Brett fell asleep, he checked him for a wire. Nothing. The guy was clean. But then he found a hidden pocket inside his shirt. A metal case, 3 red pills, luciferium. The fella stepped outside. Escobar held the pills to the moonlight.
This explains his fighting prowess.
What is it?
Luciferium. To some, it's an angel. To others, a devil. Once you start taking it, you can't stop. If you do, you die. It's the most dangerous drug in the world.
Escobar was right. If the drug market was a chessboard, then this was the queen. Imagine taking Red Eye from Cowboy Bebop and splicing it with the euphoric feeling of ambrosia, and mix in a little Glitter World medicine while you're at it. That's the level of high we're talking about. Thankfully, it was hard to find, and even harder to make. But scarcity drives up cost, and big profits mean big competition. Luciferium was a deadly business, and business was good. Floridaman rolled one of the pills between his fingers. What's with the weird symbol? Escobar took a closer look. Stamped on each capsule was a reptile's eye, with 2 wavy lines above it.
Strange. I've never seen anything like it. The color's off too. Lucy's red, but these have a violet hue. And for some reason, the powder inside is shimmering.
Like a new type of Lucy?
Maybe.
Think you can reverse engineer it? Make your own to sell?
No, never that. I'd never wish that on anyone. Besides, no one knows how to make Lucy. It's a hidden art. Whoever's making this is either a master alchemist or a damn imposter. And I'm not sure which is worse.
He dropped the pills back in their case and stared up at the stars.
Whatever it is, we need to be careful.
Floridaman chuckled and leaned back beside him.
Sounds to me like things are about to get interesting.
He didn't know it yet, but he was right. There were a lot of bad things out in that swamp. They'd find out eventually. But for now, El Gatorado was open for business. Thanks for deciding to anchor here in this little corner of the internet. If you've enjoyed your stay, the Harbor Master is taking bribes in the form of likes, comments, and subscribes. I didn't mean to make that rhyme, I swear. In case you're wondering where I've been the last few months, I've been writing like a madman. This series started off as a joke, but quickly grew into something much, much more. And so did the script, and the hundreds of hours I put into it. The page count went from a measly 28 pages to 145. So in truth, it's more of a novella than a script. If you like True Detective, you're gonna like this series. If you like Tiger King, you're gonna like this series. And if for some reason you like the idea of True Detective having a baby with Tiger King with just a dash of Resident Evil on top, then you're gonna love this series. Oh, and one last thing. You might have noticed that I'm wandering around this empty harbor here. Well, that's because I'm waiting for awesome people like you to come and join me. By joining the highest tier of my Patreon, you get to request a custom pond that'll show up here at the end of every video, and you get to choose where they hang out. You could be a bartender at this really cool Innsmouth kind of tavern right here. You could be fishing on one of these creepy docks. Or hey, you can be hanging out on this boat. I don't know what it's doing here, but it's here. The possibilities are endless. And it's also still a work in progress, so I'm taking building suggestions and things like that too. Plus, you'd be massively supporting the channel. So this is kind of my way of saying, hey, if you really like the content and you want to help me eventually make this a full-time thing, then this is a way to definitely start. But if you don't have the spare money, don't worry about it. Likes and comments and things like that really do go a long way. No matter what, I really appreciate the support no matter how you give it. And if you have any other reward suggestions besides the custom ponds and things like that, let me know. I'm thinking about doing like an open Q&A at the end of every video where people in the Patreon can ask certain questions and I can answer them, but that's still being worked on. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching this episode. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, my friends.